Greetings and welcome. My name is Mike Bankhead. I am your host. I'm a bass player and songwriter from the Jam City, Dayton, Ohio. This is episode 124, and it is my pleasure to welcome on this episode a fellow Ohioan and fellow bass player. Mery Steel is their artist name, and I think you will enjoy getting to know them on the You Could Be My Aramis podcast. Truth be told, we had this conversation several weeks ago, but I am notoriously slow to get my episodes edited and posted. Apologies to everyone for that. Let's get to the conversation. Hey there, Mery Steel. What day is today? Happy Thursday? Happy Thursday.
It's Thursday. Happy Thursday, Mike. Nice to see you.
It is nice to see you. You are a bundle of joy despite your sad song nights that you have in Columbus.
You got to keep it balanced, you know?
It is, you know what, it's hard to do because it's hard to find joy when society is crumbling around us. But what are you going to do?
Yeah. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
We're going to write songs,
We're gonna
Mery
write
Steel.
songs.
We're gonna talk about our
shows.
feelings.
We're gonna play shows
Yeah,
in front of people live
and commune,
and commune.
which is where, because community. So I want you to tell me some stories. You've been doing the music thing a long time. How'd you get started? Is fiddle or violin actually your first instrument? Because I've seen you doing that. I want like the background first on the history of Mery Steel, the musician.
Okay, I'll give you the highlights of the timeline. Piano was my first instrument. My parents got me like a show and hut toy piano when I was a kid. And so I used to like pick out melodies on my toy piano. And then when I started grade one, my teacher taught piano after school. And I was like, Miss Goodson's my favorite teacher, and I could learn piano. Dad, please buy me a piano so I can play piano. So he did. He bought me a little, I think he just went to like Radio Shack and got me a keyboard. Um, and I started piano lessons. And then I got a real piano. My grandpa got me, and I started taking lessons more seriously. And around the time I started, I think it was grade five, I picked up violin, and I literally picked it up and I was like, hey, I think I know how to play this without any instruction,
Whoa.
which was cool. But my dad plays guitar. He played guitar in front of me growing up, right? So like I had observed someone playing a string instrument before, so I think I had just like a little bit of a leg up. So I started playing violin. We moved down here. I started private lessons. So I took private lessons in piano and violin, but then I kind of switched to violin for a while. I got into Ohio State because I was going to become a violin major. But I think by that time, first of all, I had like pretty serious test anxiety. So the idea of auditioning just gave me like terrible heartburn. But I also had realized that the, my friends all like played in bands or wanted to play in bands, and like the social scene of like that part of my world just felt so much of a better fit for me than the social scene of the classical world, which in my experience was quite stunted and conservative socially. Like I don't think like bigoted conservative, but more just like we don't really party, and like we don't really know how to joke around, and everything's very serious, and like forget about improvising. We don't do that here.
No, they do not.
Um, so I kind of stopped actually. I never auditioned once I got into Ohio State, and went in a different direction for a while. I have an academic degree actually. But then after college, I joined up with a band, and we played together for 3 or 4 years and toured together for a couple of years. And that was awesome. And then I found myself faced with a choice between like having a house and a life and a job and stability and a family and being in a band and touring for no money. And back then, it really wasn't clear to me how to sustain myself in a band. So I chose door number two, which I think I regret it kind of. I think I kind of regret it. Because I could have been doing this from the time I was 23, not the time I was 38, you know? Um, so I kind of stopped for a while. I played here and there. And then my friends asked me, hey, play fiddle. We're going to Europe for 6 weeks. We want to tour. Come play. So I did that,
Well,
and
that's
when I
awesome.
it was awesome. It was a life-changing experience. Also, when you play in bands, if you've never been to Europe, it's a different experience with the audience over there. It's just they pay attention, and there are resources so they can pay you, and they always feed you, and they always give you drinks everywhere I went. I went to Germany, Amsterdam, Denmark. We didn't make it to Sweden, I don't think. The Netherlands, did I say? No, I said Amsterdam, didn't
You
I?
did.
That's not even a country. Uh, yeah, Germany, France, England, the Netherlands, and Denmark. We went to those five places. And the only place where we kind of weren't treated great was England, actually. We went to London and it was kind of a bust. But everywhere else, very awesome. So I went over there. I had a magical time. I was surrounded by people who like live as artists and know how to do that. And they kind of were just like, "Are you sure that you're like in the right place for yourself back home?" And they could see that I was like really torn. And so they encouraged me to follow my heart and not my responsibilities. And I came back and I blew up my life and I ended that relationship I was in and kind of I supported myself in a tech job for a long time. And that went pretty well for a while until my manager got fired. Actually, the whole leadership of my group got fired. And then it sort of became this hostile territory for me. I had a breakdown in 2022. I basically was pushing through burnout for several years. So I had a nervous breakdown. I had to stop working entirely. I think it wasn't just work stress though. Like that was, we were coming off of the second year of lockdown from COVID and all the things that went along with that time, as you'll recall, right? Like big social upheaval that has sort of just like it's been climbing up until now.
Hmm.
Um, but the reason I'm a ray of sunshine in the midst of all this nonsense is because as things have been breaking down socially, I have had the opportunity to take space and time for myself to like really get my priorities in line and to understand myself better, and also to figure out a way to actually make music my career that supports me. So I guess that's sort of the timeline of bullet points.
Living the dream. I mean,
Living the dream.
I've never had a chance to go on tour, and I want to do that so bad, even though there's no universe where I can afford it. It's just, we're musicians. We want to play for people, even if it's not that many people, but because playing makes us feel good.
I feel like maybe there's ways you could maybe get out there without going for a long time.
I'm working on it, and sometime when we're not recording, we should talk about that. And also, maybe when we're not recording, we can share our crashing out of corporate America stories because I have one too. But this is about you and not about me. So, first of all, you mentioned briefly move down here. Now, see, I know where you grew up, but the people listening do not. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Why do you not sound like you grew up in that lovely city?
Well, because I moved here in 1997.
All right, I'm
So
not going to ask
it's
how
been
old you
almost
are,
30
but you were a
years.
child when you came here.
I was 11, yeah.
Do you still have that Canadian passport?
I do.
Useful.
Yes, very useful.
Useful. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, my
Do
citizenship is in good standing in Canada, as far as I know.
do you still enjoy hockey? And are you a Maple Leafs fan?
I, mm, yes, I enjoy hockey. I'm not sure I ever was a Leafs fan. I'm a Habs fan and
Oh,
Leafs
okay.
fan if other teams that I don't like better are playing. I don't really have one team loyalty, especially because the Leafs just suck.
They're not great. I feel like other than maple syrup, hockey is in the blood of all of you folks who are from your home and native land. So, and yes, I do know the words to "Oh Canada." And, I'm probably one of the few people who live down here who can say that.
Why do
Um,
you know that?
I have watched a lot of hockey, and it's
Oh,
and it's not like they're difficult words to learn. I do not know it in French, but I do know the words in English.
what team? Who's your team?
So before we got one, because we have one now, the Blue Jackets. I live in Dayton, but I'm an Ohioan. I used to root for the Blackhawks. We're talking like the '90s with Chris Chelios and Jeremy Roenick and
Yeah.
those guys. Because also as an Ohioan, I wasn't about to root for any team from that state up north. So even though the Red Wings were the closest hockey team to me, just right up I-75, I was like, no.
got to be the Blackhawks. But now,
You gotta hold the line, Mike.
right? But now we have a team, and I don't watch nearly as much hockey as I should. I really just start watching when the playoffs start, and I know that at the moment, if the season were to end today, the Blue Jackets are in. But we'll see if that still holds true. But it's a great sport, and I love it, and I'm glad we have a team in our state now.
Me too. It is nice to be able to go to pro games every once in a while because it's just so fun to watch.
It is.
It's fast, it's medium scoring, like there's so much finesse, right? Like when you see good players and the teamwork is like it's really easy to see, like
Easier in person because the TV doesn't show you the entire. You have a much wider view, so you can see plays develop better in person. I agree with you.
have you ever been, I haven't done this, but I have heard that Ohio State women's hockey is actually really fun to go to.
I have not, and I really want to. And they've won two of the last three championships. So not only are they supposed to be fun, they're among the best in the country. So it's on my
Dude.
list.
Yeah, we should just do that. I don't know when, is it in season? I don't
It
know when the
is.
season
I
starts.
believe. I believe it is in season.
Let's follow up.
That would be a fun outing. Also, it's just cool to be on campus and support the Buckeyes. I didn't go there, but again, I grew up in Ohio. It's kind of like it is a birthright when you grow up in the state.
It's true.
You mentioned test anxiety. Does that translate to red light syndrome when you are going to make a record?
What's red light
Oh,
syndrome?
when the red light goes on, you freeze up. Like
Oh,
you get nervous when the record button gets hit.
I do get nervous when the record button gets hit, but it's not the same in the studio because like I'm in charge of what sounds good in the studio. It's very different from being judged by a panel of adults you've never met.
Ah, good point.
I was also, when I started college, I was 17. So
Wow.
I was younger than the crowd and just, imposter syndrome and just like, I don't know. I'm a late bloomer. It took me a long time to sort of get a handle on myself and and my motives and like how I like to act and how I like to be received. And I think that was really where it came from, was just feeling like I didn't have, I, you know, I don't really like to be judged. I don't like to be
Well,
judged.
who does, honestly?
Yeah, yeah. Well, some people really love competing in that way. I don't have it.
Have you managed to defeat imposter syndrome? Because I'm a grown man and I have it. So is that something that you've got it behind you?
Well, I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, I think I have. I think I figured it out. The last few years, I've spent a lot of time figuring out why I react in certain situations rather than being able to like respond. Because like I was just finding myself like really reactive. Part of it was having a super high stress level. Part of it was feeling like I was being scrutinized all the time. Right. So like if you're in a situation like say a desk job at a corporation where you have somebody breathing down your neck all the time, who maybe isn't so great with people, but really lets you know that the ways that you are trying to get your job done don't work for them. It's going to give you a sense that you're a up. And so that sense of upness, I think, will follow you out of that context into other contexts, right? So, like, I think if you're sort of under the thumb of a person you don't vibe with, that's really going to contribute to your imposter syndrome. Another thing is just realizing that, like, outside of the the systems where we find ourselves adjudicated, I guess is how I would put that. Like once you're outside of those systems, you get to be in control of what is cool and what is not, right? So like I think imposter syndrome maybe originates in the place where like we are not in charge of our own standards for ourselves, right? And like where those standards don't align with what we're trying to communicate or trying to do. So getting out of situations in which I was being judged by standards that I didn't personally agree with has done wonders for my imposter syndrome, right?
That's
So like
brilliant.
you hear stuff like, go where the love is. Like that sounds corny, but it's true. Like you don't want to like waste time trying to impress people who aren't already into what you're doing. Right? Like go like if you find people who even if you don't think you're gonna vibe with them, if they like what you're doing, and keep going back to those people. It really helps. It helps to build your self-esteem when you're not feeling like you're constantly failing.
That's brilliant. And you are the first person to use the word adjudicated on my podcast. So That's awesome.
Hey,
Putting that
that's that
put
academic degree kicking
Yeah,
in.
putting that degree to good use. So, when did you start writing songs? You've been playing a long time. When did it go from you're playing an instrument, you're practicing your instruments, you're learning other people's songs to writing your own?
I never wrote a song until I was 33 years old.
Why did it take you so long? That sounded judgy. It didn't mean to sound judgy.
No, I get that question all the time. And I ask myself that question all the time. And I would say imposter syndrome was a big part of it. But really, going back to what we were just saying about imposter syndrome, for me, it was the fact that I did not have a supportive community of artists
Mhm.
who helped me understand what it was I was trying to do, right? Instead of like a bunch of nice art friends who support each other in their projects, I had friends who were guys who just like got totally they got pitchfork pilled super hard, right? Pitchfork.com was brand new when like people that I knew were trying to play in bands. And everybody was just like, oh God, now I have to play, I have to make good music too, right? I have to make music that's good based on the standards that writers, music writers, and critics are using to judge music, right? So, like, because I didn't have, that was my only frame of reference for making independent, like, contemporary music for so long. I just didn't have I didn't have the confidence because I didn't even know that I was an artist, actually. I had to date a working artist who then was like, you're an artist, in order for me to absorb that idea, right? Like I've been writing parts in bands, playing in bands, touring in bands, singing, like helping produce, arranging. I've been doing all this stuff that is clearly art, but I thought of myself as like a player or like a just somebody who helps on the side. It took me a long time. It never occurred to me to call myself an artist. And I think it comes down to community, right? Like who's around you, who's showing you what you're made of, and who supports you. So that's why it took me so long, is because like I didn't find my, it took me a long time to find my voice because I was so bogged down in like, what should I be doing? What should this sound like? Like, what is good? And like, am I it?
Seems like you found it now. Like I
Thanks.
said this before I hit the record button, but from your social media presence, you don't seem to be afraid to say much of whatever happens to be on your mind, which is it could possibly get people into trouble, but it's also very
Mhm.
admirable. Like when I look at the things you say, and also when I listen to your songs, I this is you come across as a person that is not afraid, which is kind of
Great.
cool.
Yeah, I don't feel very afraid. I think I felt more confused in my life than afraid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. So let's get into your songwriting process. Let's pretend that Mary Steele's going to write a Mary Steele song today. What is the first tool that you're going to reach for?
It sort of depends, right? Because like usually I don't sit down and decide to write. I usually start my writing process. It's sort of a longer process where I have phases where I write and phases where I focus on other things. And I haven't really found a way to balance like the writing part with the business part because the business part is taking so much time and energy right now.
Hmm.
But once I find some space that's cleared, I'm going to start writing again. And what that's going to look like is I'm going to start taking long drives by myself and listening to music and just taking notes of what ideas come up for me, right? So, like, usually it's a voice memo. Sometimes I'll just like write a note on my app, but I start to sort of collect these ideas and let whatever is swirling around inside of me like start to settle in a few different piles. And then ideas just kind of come to me out of nowhere, right? And like when I have a song in mind, usually what happens is like I have an idea for a lyric hook or an audio hook, like either the music or the words come first. Um, I match those up and then I start to like think of the other ideas that I've had recently. Like I'll go back and I'll listen through. I have like 2 years worth of voice memos of just song ideas that
I
I've had,
think I
right?
think we all do.
Sure. Yeah, because you can't always sit down and like indulge the muse, right?
Yep.
Like a lot of time you really gotta budget that for later. So yeah, that's what my writing process looks like. And typically like when a song is really good, it comes to me almost all at once, right? Like, and it's a culmination of like the build of all of these ideas sort of coming together in the opportunity of having some space in my mind to like play.
Which
Yeah.
of your instruments do you normally compose the music on? Or do you switch
Mm,
back and forth depending on where you think the song needs to go?
I go through phases. Usually well, not maybe not usually, but for the last few years, guitar has been my main writing instrument. I kind of hit a little bit of a wall technically on guitar actually, and have started taking, not exactly taking lessons, but like I'm doing some things. I'm working on my technique and practicing some stuff that I think is going to help me get outside of the rut that I'm in writing wise. But I also have picked the bass back up recently.
Yeah, I noticed. I saw pictures, and as a bass player, that warms my heart.
Dude, I love it. It's so much easier to lead the band with a bass than guitar while singing. Like you can do so much with so little on a bass, you know? And with guitar, like I don't exactly overplay, but like when I write my guitar parts, it's like I have to have the chords and I have to have a little bit of a bass line and I probably am going to want to have a melody in the chords. And then I'm also going to have a percussive element. Like I'm trying to write these songs so I can play without a band, basically, right?
Hmm.
And that just makes it takes up a lot of space in the band. And so when I'm playing that and singing over it, I kind of can't even hear what's going on in the band. So switching has enabled me to see how space can be taken up by others in my music. And I'm very excited for what bass gives me because, well, first of all, it's a totally different, it's just a totally different space to be grooving in, right? And
It
like I'm
is.
getting very interested in grooves. I think my earlier songs were sort of more melodic and guitar driven and on sort of like the folkier, poppier side. But these days, like I want to write something that makes people's bodies want to move, you know? So bass just like really lends itself to that in ways the guitar, um, I'm not saying the guitar doesn't do that, but like just a different headspace to be in when you've only got like one note, you know?
Have you written a song on the bass yet?
Have I written a song on the bass yet? I don't know.
You
Not
should
maybe
try
not
it.
a maybe not a full one. It's on my list of things to do. I have a lot of bass grooves that I'm interested in following up on.
Like you mentioned, the limitations of the instrument make you think about song composition in a different way.
Yeah.
And I don't play guitar, and I didn't take piano lessons until I was 38. So even though these days I compose on piano mostly because I need to tell the guitarist I hire the entire chord flavor, I still do write on the bass often. And I think that being, I mean, I admit I'm a limited musician as far as my skill set, but sometimes playing in the small play box and your limits makes you creative in a way that people who have more talent than you can't see, right? Because you have to figure out how to use the tools you got, if
Yes.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. It sort of reminds me of like uh playing chess when you don't know any of like the standard moves and you have to like,
Yeah.
be creative and you can come up with combinations of moves that don't occur to people who have more context or training or knowledge because you're just not aware of it and like it's you know once you learn patterns it sort of becomes knee jerk to sort of rewalk those same ruts, right? Starting on a new instrument or like switching instruments is a really nice way to just sort of refresh where you're coming from creatively too.
How do you know when the song is done?
How do I know when the song is done? When I don't have any lyrics that I don't like, when it's sufficiently, what's the word I'm looking for? Not diverse exactly, but yeah, maybe diverse, right? Like just there needs to be more than one thing happening, I think, in a song in order for it to work. Sometimes I write songs that are kind of straight ahead, but like I tend to like to have some shape to the trajectory of a song so that it kind of takes you on a journey. Um, but honestly, really like once I have a song written and it sort of meets those criteria, as long as I'm not annoyed by any part of it, it's done. It has to get its point across lyrically. It can't be confused. I think it should have a good hook. Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Hard to answer.
I meant to have you on a long time ago because you put out a record last year called She's Back, which was either about the part of your body that is showing on the cover of the record or about this was your return to releasing music. And you released it on January 1st of 2024, and it took me forever to get you on and talk about it. So I'm sorry. And you released something else in the fall, a 4-song EP, and you're about to release a new thing. So you're just like the music is coming out of you. So let's go back to the past and talk about She's Back and what that record means to you and the recording process and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So I put the songs together and recorded them before I knew what I was going to call the record. It took me a long time actually to figure out what I was going to call it. Because originally we were going to record that, we were going to record it in 2020. But
Oops.
the funniest thing happened. So we didn't get to do that. We did finally get back into a studio in 2021 to start to record. But as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, I was experiencing burnout pretty bad. I didn't know that's what it was until it really hit. Because when you're in a cycle where like you're scared to leave, you tend to sort of be in denial about the possibility of leaving. Or maybe for me, it was more like I didn't know what the alternative was for me, right? Like if I left this lucrative tech job that was making me want to kill myself, what would I do? Like, could I do something else? Like, this is my only skill set. And also, I was feeling really messed up about my skills at that job because of the way that I was really treated by my management. I was, like I was put on dysfunctional projects and then made to feel responsible for the dysfunction when I was just reporting it back. And that's neither here nor there. For a long time, I was having trouble even before COVID with my body. So I developed chronic pain, right? Like in my shoulder froze up in 2019 for 10 days straight. I couldn't do anything except for like eat edibles and lie around. Like it was really scary. But even leading up to that, like my back was always tense, my neck, my shoulders, my hips, like I just felt sensation all the time and it was getting worse and worse and worse. And that lasted probably like 5 years.
Whoa.
I was in pain for like 5 years straight. Um, and so music before COVID, I was really pushing very hard. I was working 9 to 5, and then I was probably putting in like 4 hours of band work almost every day. Um, and that was too much on my body. Um, but then COVID, all of the like I think that the inertia or the not the inertia is not the right word. The momentum of what I was doing in music was sort of keeping me feeling productive and excited. And that dropped off pretty fast after lockdown. And once that was gone, there was no motivation to get this record finished, right? Like I hit the tank and I wasn't seeing anybody, and I'm an extrovert. I get a charge from socializing. So when you're not seeing people, you don't get charged up. So like my battery was just getting lower and lower and lower, and there were no reserves left. 3 years later, I ended up leaving that job. Um, how was I answering this question? Oh, she's back, right? So, okay. The record was originally supposed to just be, these are the songs we've been playing the longest. Here's some songs. Here's Mery Steel. This is an album of some songs, right? Like there was no overarching concept behind it. The songs didn't really go together. Stylistically, it's kind of a hodgepodge, right? And it was really just meant to be like a let's get it out as fast as possible so that we can start and make a couple of the songs sound like a single. But then the band kind of fell apart. I lost my drummer, and that was really demoralizing. And really just like keeping the momentum alive to work on this record and do the post-production and get the song sounding like something. The process just dragged on, and it became more and more of an albatross around my neck of just like, why can't I release this record? So by the end of it, I was feeling very down on it, actually. And I don't think that my perspective has changed that much on the record. I'm happy with how the songs sound. I like that it represents sort of a diversity of styles that we are able to offer to an audience. But the reason that I ended up calling it She's Back is because the whole time that I was recording it, I felt like I was just lost, right? And also, it's a little bit of a joke that my first album is called She's Back. And also, my back was killing me every day for 5 years. So it's a little bit of like it is a reference to my physical back as well. And the photo that we ended up using was sort of just like I didn't even think that I was going to use it for album art at the time, but I shot with Seth Moses Miller and we were just sort of messing around with different concepts, and that was one of them that came up, and it just felt perfect. And so that's how we ended up with She's Back. I know I kind of rambled a little bit, but
You are allowed to ramble. That's kind of the point. Bad Magic, very different cover photo.
Yes,
Did
that's
those
the
songs
older
get,
photo.
did those songs get recorded in the same session, or did you record those later?
They got recorded in the same session. They were songs that like they were part of the same body of work, but they just didn't quite fit. They were like a little more rock and roll, a little darker, a little grittier than what's on the record. And I just kind of couldn't find a way to like make them fit into sort of the arc of the songs. Um, so I figured if it's a different vibe, there will probably be a different opportunity. This is an opportunity to maybe introduce like a more cohesive um, image of me, like a more cohesive version of me, I guess is the way to put it.
And that might be why you chose to put two different versions of War on there.
Well, we actually recorded those. That's a great idea. I did not have that idea. I love that though. No, we just recorded those. My friend Charlie, I wrote that song in the backyard with my friend Charlie, who sings on the version that Charlie sings on.
Yep.
But Charlie couldn't always sing with me, and I didn't want to sing his verse, so I wrote my own that I could sing when I didn't have a guest vocalist, basically. And I just like my second verse, and that's why there's two versions of War released, is because I love Charlie's version, but I also just wanted to do justice to just me singing that song too.
That's pretty cool. It's an interesting creative choice. I like it.
Thank you.
You do a lot of live shows and such, and one of them that you seem to do more on a recurring basis is called Sad Hour. Can you talk to me about that one?
Yes. I'll start by saying that Sad Hour has actually been on hiatus for a little while.
Are we no longer sad?
Oh no, we're sad. What I found was, so what I was doing was just like booking a room and doing 2 hours of sad songs at happy hour. I started doing that sort of towards the end of lockdown. It just felt like people needed to be sad to me. And I kind of hoped that like I would be able to maybe, I don't know, I tried a few things. I was trying to build some momentum or some interest, but like I think it ultimately just ended up feeling more like an if you build it, they will come kind of thing. Um, so for the last couple of years, I have been working sort of slowly behind the scenes at building Sad Hour into something a little bit more developed. Um, so we are not in talks yet, but we have a venue in mind. I have a few friends now who are helping me as well. But we have a venue in mind and we want to change the show format. So instead of just being a live music performance of sad songs, we want to make it more of like a, I don't exactly want to call it a church service, but I am kind of thinking of Sad Hour as the church of grief. It has occurred to me, and I've talked to many friends who agree that like we don't really have a lot of spaces where we can meet to grieve, right? We have funerals, and that's just about it, really. Our culture doesn't really afford a lot of real estate for grief. I think that there are probably reasons for that. But regardless of the reasons for that, I think that right now we have a lot of grief and we're increasingly isolated and people just like don't know what to do with all these big, heavy feelings. So to that end, what we're hoping to provide is sort of a therapeutic space with Sad Hour, where first of all, it's not going to be just at a bar. We're going to have some NA options and teas and stuff for folks who do not want to, who don't need to use the booze, I guess, to like dip into their feelings, right? Booze will still be part of it because I think that that is a lubricant for some folks. Um, but we want to have a space. We want to have like an opening and a closing song that people can join in with. There will still be a music component, but instead of just like being once a month with just the same old sad songs, I want to have it be themed. But it will be scheduled around, we're looking at scheduling it around the change of the season. So it's going to have a cycle that's different from like the day-to-day, the 9 to 5 grind, right? Like our only cycle right now is the fucking work grind, and that is not good for anybody. So trying to sort of get back in touch with like natural cycles of being rather than being sort of dropped into this artificial machine. Um, that's part of it. We're gonna have, I'm probably gonna continue to host, but I will probably have a co-host for every episode. Um, we will also have a conversation topic and experts or guests to come in and like talk about really just like whatever, we're going to have themed shows, so whatever goes with the theme. But it's all going to be focused around processing emotions that you don't get to express in public very often. And we also understand that reaching people who are isolated, the people I think who need sad hour the most are folks who are really stuck at home, right? So like there's folks who are immune compromised who still can't really go in public spaces because we never, instead of dealing with COVID, we just all collectively decided that it doesn't exist anymore and we're going to take the hit, right?
This
We
is
are
true.
the risk. I'm a music performer, right? I sing. I can't mask when I sing. So like because of sort of just how things have shaken out, it's been hard for me to, take the safety precautions that I would want to take to protect people. But we're thinking about people who are stuck at home because they can't leave the house, or because the weight of the world is too difficult, or maybe because it's been so long that the feeling of reintegrating socially is just overwhelming. So to that end, we're also hoping to live cast it, and we want to post edit it for a podcast, which you and I talked a little bit about editing before. I'm really hoping I can get a friend to edit this for me so I don't have to do it, because it's never going to get out if I'm the one who's editing. But basically, yeah, we're looking at something that's a little bit more, is more comprehensive and involves more of the senses, and is really going to be, I hope that we can come up with a format that we could just like put on the internet, and then anyone who wants to do a sad hour can do a sad hour for whoever they want to, right? So like it's intended to sort of be a community space that like you can do your version of, and like you can figure out what works for you, and we can all sort of communicate together about it. Like, I don't know, I'm just very excited to work with some friends to help to define like America's second ever public grieving space,
You're blowing that up. When I first saw you posting about it over the last couple years, I thought, well, that's perfect for me because like 90% of my songs are sad.
Yeah, we
Like
want you, Mike.
as a songwriter who uses songwriting, hey there, Dracula, who uses songwriting to this is not a visual podcast, so dear listeners, Dracula is Mary's cat, and
I was hoping you
this
wouldn't actually explain it, and so just
oh, people were
partway
like, what is he
through, it's just
talking
like
about?
Dracula. Who's Dracula's there?
Um, yeah, I thought, wow, songwriting is how I process my emotions, right? And even some of them you don't share, but some of them you do, and the collective having other people experience that with you is kind of helpful. True story. I played a showcase here in Dayton once a year ago or so, and when I was finished, a lady who was there who had never seen me play walked up to me at the bar and says, "Who hurt you?" After
Oh,
listening to my songs for half an hour, and I was like, "Life."
you're like, where do I begin?
But
I'll
I was
get you on
like,
the list.
all right, she listened to my lyrics. It's nice to know that some people out there are listening to the lyrics.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Makes a big difference.
You're working on a new album.
I am.
How close are you to being finished? I know musicians hate that question, but
We start recording in March. We start
so
recording this month.
it's written. That makes it close to being finished.
It's written.
It's written.
Yeah, the songs have been written. Some of them are quite old, some of them are newer. I'd say it's got like one of my oldest songs on it, and then several of my newest songs.
So we might get that in the fall or the winter of
My hope is
2025.
that it's going to be out by the end of the year.
I know how that works, so I know not to get our hopes up. Uh, Dear listener, if you do not make music and don't make records, it can take longer than you think it does.
Yeah,
This,
just the coordinating part, like of schedules is I was hoping to start recording in January, and March was by the time we sort of like got our together, March was the earliest that we could find any common weekends in a row.
yeah, but such is life.
Such
All
is
right.
life.
I have two questions that I ask every guest, and not that you aren't special because you are very special to me, but I'm going to ask you the same questions I ask everyone. This first one I stole from another podcast that is now defunct, Hat Tip Gym City podcast. I missed them. It is, what did your childhood smell like?
What did my childhood smell like?
You cannot say poutine.
Well, I wouldn't say poutine because that wasn't even a food trend until after I left Canada.
Wow.
Yeah. Although we do be putting gravy on fries. It's not called poutine, it's just called fries with gravy. Poutine is when you add the cheese. My childhood smelled like holiday meals. My parents love to cook and are really good at it. Smelled like oh, the subway in Toronto and the pavement of the city. Um,
That new city smell.
that new city, that old dirty city smell.
Toronto's not a terrible smelling city. I have smelled worse.
It's Toronto is the best city. It's so cool. It's still so cool, even though it's been just like destroyed by real estate investment firms, like every other city, right?
Like every other city.
Yeah.
I've only been there twice, maybe three times, but I love visiting there. Whatever you're calling Skydome these days, I'm still gonna call it Skydome. I'm sorry,
It's the
Canadians.
Sky Dome. You can't call it anything else.
Whatever. I love going there, even though it's a weird place to see a baseball game. It's a good time, as
It's
you
weird.
know. Yeah, because it feels like when you're indoors, even when the roof is open, it feels like you're indoors. It's just
Uh,
baseball is an outdoor sport, right? But I like going there, and obviously, as you know, your people are very friendly up there in Canada, in
mhm.
Ontario. So
So friendly is an interesting word because people say that about Ohioans too.
I agree, but I'm in Ohio and I'm partial.
It's true. It's a different kind of thing though, because here, are you familiar with the concept of ask culture and guess culture?
I am not, but please explain.
Okay, so this is not like a prescriptive thing. This is just a concept that has helped me sort of sort out some things about myself as a person who's not from the Midwest. In ask culture, it is typical to if you need something, you try to get it. You go and you're like, hey, I need this thing. Can somebody help me? In guest culture, you wait around until you think that you wait for the opportunity to see if the person or the institution or whatever is going to be willing to give you what you want. And you wait to like guess for the right moment that you can kind of just like do that thing or take that thing, right? So it has to do with like there's an assertiveness and also like I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm talking about. This is hard. This is hard to talk about. Let's pretend that let me ask me that question again. Did you even ask me a question?
I don't think so. I forgot. I was like into your story. So I
Yeah, so let me put it this way.
you it started with me saying that your people from Ontario and your home and native land are the true north are friendly. And you were
Yes.
making a distinction between Canadian friendly and Midwest friendly.
Yeah, I think that so Canadian friendly is confrontational and Midwest friendliness is like if you don't know if it's not obvious like what script to deploy, you maybe you're going to feel uncomfortable. One of the first things I noticed about Ohio is that when you go into a grocery store, no matter how wide the aisle is, if somebody passes you in that aisle, they say excuse me as quietly as possible, as though they did not even like they should not exist. And I'm from Toronto. It's a big city, but even out in the sticks, that's not a characteristic of public life in Canada as I know it, right? Like the friendliness of Canada really feels like people treat you like they know you. And it feels to me here like if people aren't sure if you're friendly or not, there's a big gap of deference where it's just like, if I don't have to interact with you, or if I don't know who you are and I don't know how to interact with you, I'm going to pretend like neither of us really exists. Um,
I can see
and
that. I can see how someone could feel that way.
like people are very like, I don't know, people are very nice here. I would say Canadians are like polite but direct, and Midwesterners are nice but sort of indirect.
That is, I would say that's accurate. Or it's kind of like the common thing people say about New Yorkers. They're not nice, but they're kind.
Yeah, exactly right.
Like they will not, they don't want you to waste their time and they don't want you to small talk, but you will never see somebody have to carry their own baby stroller up steps in a New York subway. Some
Yep,
random strangers are going to get it and do it, and then because they're kind, they're just not small talky nice.
that's my experience living in Canada. It's not about, it's, I mean, it sort of makes me think of when people are like, we don't want symbolic activism. We want like real, right? And the niceness of Ohio sometimes has rung hollow for me, because what I'm asking for is something real. And I find that like when I ask for something real, it makes people uncomfortable. And like, I don't know how not to ask for something real,
Well, it's a
like
cultural
from
thing,
another
right?
culture.
And I think there's some truth in that. There are parts in our state where I feel uncomfortable because, I'm a brown person.
Uh-huh.
That
Yeah.
said, even in those parts of the state, I feel like if something horrible happened, like insert natural disaster of choice, tornado, wildfire, whatever, I think communities in our state would come together and support each other, even the brown people.
You know what?
Like that's
I would go a step further. I would say that in most states, that actually is the case. I would say in most places in the world, when people see other people in trouble, they try to help.
yeah, which
Yeah,
kind of reaffirms your faith in humanity. But
it does mine.
real quick anecdote. I used to live in El Paso. I was there for a year, and
Oh yeah.
I had the habit of jogging every day. And I came home for a visit, and this is when I had an aha moment about my home. I was out jogging through my old childhood neighborhood, and typical Ohio suburb, and every car that passed me, the driver waved, and I did not know any of these people, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, but that didn't happen in El Paso. I'm not saying that the folks down there are not friendly because they are. It's just a different culture, right? But that made me
Yeah.
think. It's like, oh, that is the Midwest. Hey, neighbor. Even though I didn't know who these people were, they didn't know who I was, but I'm jogging on their neighborhood street.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Next question. I
Next
feel like we
question.
could do a whole podcast on that, but we're running out of time, so we won't.
Honestly, we could. We should.
We should, because I find that I'm one of those people that loves to learn about other countries, other cultures, other languages, other food traditions. And I think that those little cultural differences are so fascinating because we don't really have control over that, right? We assimilate the culture that we were born and raised in, and so these are the things that we learn how to behave this way because our parents and the people we lived around behave this way. It doesn't mean that someone who lives somewhere else, how they behave is wrong, even though it might be completely foreign to us and weird. It's just different, and it all works if we make an effort to understand each other, right?
It's true. I think there's like an awesome side to the Midwest coin and like a pretty ugly side to the Midwest coin. But yeah, ultimately, I think people want to help each other out. I also think that diversity plays really heavily into how these dynamics work out.
Yeah, that is
Because
absolutely
coming from
true.
a place like you were talking about, you assimilate the culture that you were born
You
into,
do.
and I was thinking to myself, I think I was Chinese in a past life, but really it's because almost all of
Toronto.
my friends in Toronto, their parents came from China, right? My first three piano teachers were from China. And when you interact with all kinds of different people all the time who have different cultural ways, just the way that you interpret your own behavior and like how you interact socially, it changes. And Ohio, I haven't lived in many places in Ohio, but living in Columbus for a long time, the very first thing I noticed before the grocery store thing was how segregated Columbus is.
Every American city is segregated.
New
And
York is less
Columbus,
segregated. New York is less segregated, and there are places that are there's more integration. But yes, there's segregation everywhere, and it's really, if you're not used to it, it's really striking.
and Columbus, I feel, is probably our state's most diverse city.
You think more than Cleveland?
Yeah, because I think that there's so many kids from everywhere that goes to the university. Ohio State's massive. It's a city within
Mm,
a city, and it
yeah,
brings people that, and also a lot of tech businesses, a lot of big corporations are in Columbus. It brings people from all over the world. I think Columbus is super diverse. But if you look at the bones of the city, right, it's been segregated for 100 years. And
hmm
it's so is Dayton. So is, it is an artifact of, well, I didn't want to go to a history
Racism.
pod.
It's an
Well,
artifact of
yeah,
racism.
it's an artifact of racism and the history of the United States, but we're not on a history podcast. But we could be on one if we wanted to.
Dude,
Um,
anytime you want, Mike, I'm down.
also, dear
I'm not a
listener,
historian. I'm more of an analyst, but
oh, we should do that. Also, dear listener, I wrote a record about Black America and my personal experiences with it. You should go check it out. It's called I'm Experienced. But this is Mary's podcast, and we're going to promote her stuff. Next question is, as far back as you can remember to your tiniest youth, SYOUF, youth. What is the first song you can remember hearing in your life?
First song I can remember hearing. That's a really tough one, Mike. It's gotta be Jingle Bells. It's gotta be Jingle Bells. But I would also say that it's hard because my parents tell me all these stories, but my mom said that I used to sing Time by Tom Waits in my high chair.
Oh,
And I've always known that song.
okay.
So yeah, I'd say like Christmas carols have always been omnipresent. That's big in our family, but really like, yeah, I'm gonna go with Time by Tom Waits.
That's very cool. I did not discover Tom Waits until my 30s, so you are obviously cooler than me. So
I don't think that's how that works.
other than your official website, which is merysteel.com, that's MERYSTEEL.com, where should people interact with you if they want to know more about you, find out when you're releasing music, all that stuff?
So website is great. I'm mostly inactive on Instagram. I cross post to Facebook, but it's really just it's an afterthought. I'm on Instagram as the Mery Steel, like the Ohio State University, because apparently there's a bunch of Mery Steels out here. You can find me. I've got a link tree where I update my show listings. I also use Bands in Town. So you can find my listings there. You should subscribe if you want, be a fan. Let me see, where else can you find me? That's really kind of it. You can find me in Columbus, Ohio playing shows.
That's probably the best way. There's nothing better than that's how I found you the first time. You might not remember because you play a lot of shows, but you were in Yellow Springs playing at Peaches, and I thought, oh, that band's really good. Let me go talk to them.
I remember that was a fun show. What a weird little venue.
Yeah. Kylene still hosts an open mic there, and it's just a really good night. It's a really good time to go see folks from the community. So yeah, I meet a lot of musicians at shows because we like going to shows. Live music makes us feel good, right?
Dude, it's true. It's just so hard out here when you have no money and you're obligated to drink alcohol.
Yeah, as a musician, I get being broke because I am. It is what it is. You are a very busy person, Mery. Thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to me. You are awesome. And yeah, we should do this again soon.
I'm down anytime that you are, Mike. Thanks so much for having me.
Once again, I'd like to offer my sincere thank you to Mery Steel for taking the time to talk to me. Dear listener, thank you for listening to my podcast. It would be most helpful if you happen to like this podcast to click the like button or subscribe wherever it is that you happen to consume your podcasts. That is very much appreciated. Stay tuned for another episode of the You Could Be My Aramis podcast.